Verse 339. When the yogin finds himself in a large company, in the confusion of a company, or with Bhikshunis, and these are female mendicants, female yogis, this is not a desirable relationship for yogins, for it means to share a livelihood with them. We're in the middle of some verses which are concerned with disciplining the mind. And it's not about disciplining the mind just for the sake of it. It's about being established in awareness. It's about becoming established in awareness and remaining established in awareness. And the reason we don't remain established in awareness is because our mind is distracted here and there, and our awareness goes out into the things that the mind is distracted about. Every moment of the day provides an opportunity for the mind to be distracted. It's all very well sitting on a meditation cushion and perhaps getting into some very blissful states and then doing your various practices, getting yourself into a nice positive state. I think some people feel they have to do this. They can't actually face the day unless they've done this. This is their way of recharging their batteries to go out into the world and to cope, basically. But this is not what we're about as enlightenment practitioners. Every moment is our practice. Every moment we can be asking ourselves, are we aware or are we not? If we're not aware, we become aware. And if we can't become aware, why not? It's usually because we're in a particular mood. But even in the course of everyday activities, eating, preparing for sleep, what we wear, and our interaction with others, and what we do for a living, all these things are opportunities, excuses for the mind to hijack awareness. And in this verse, we're concerned with the company of others. And I think we can assume we're not talking about just any old company, but even the company of other people who might be involved with spiritual matters, spiritual discipline. There's a great change in your own individual tone, depending on whether you're by yourself or whether you're with somebody else. And that tone will change depending on who you're with, whether it's a family member, a friend, a colleague, a stranger, a boss, an employee. Our tone is changing all the time depending on the company. And then of course there's the dynamic between men and women. It's not explicitly addressed, but this applies too if you're homosexual. I used to be involved with a Buddhist group many years ago, and they were very keen on this idea of single-sex environments. They were very keen to minimize the potential dangers of heterosexual projections, men onto women and women onto men, and to avoid that kind of tense dynamic. But in these efforts, there seemed to be a carte blanche permission for homosexual relationships to develop. It's almost as if that was actively encouraged. For the Enlightenment practitioner, there's no difference. And what's also very interesting here is the use of the term livelihood, because it says that to be in company is to share a livelihood with them. And this, I think, we can understand in terms of what I was saying about your tone. Your tone will adjust itself to the tone of the company. Now, livelihood is one of the factors of the Eightfold Path. The Buddha's Eightfold Path, right livelihood. This same Buddhist group that I was involved with was very keen on this particular limb of the Eightfold Path, and saw right livelihood as a major effort, and they were very keen to set up the right kind of businesses, single-sex enterprises, as part of a spiritual lifestyle. It seems a rather silly understanding now when you consider it, especially in the light of this verse, but also in the light of the historical context that the Buddha gave this, teaching in. At the time of the Buddha, you did not have the opportunity to change jobs. You were born into your job. You didn't choose to become a street cleaner or a merchant. You were born into that particular caste. It wasn't a question of going down to your local job centre and finding a job which fitted in with your understanding of right livelihood. Seems quite nonsensical now when you think about it in this light. So right livelihood is really about your interaction with others. And on a personal level, this one in relationship to the opposite sex is one that is of particular interest to me. I'm a great fan of the feminine. I really appreciate it. It's almost as if my soul needs it. My soul needs contact with the feminine. I'm not talking about sex. That's another issue. I like to connect with women. I enjoy that. And what I have to ask myself though, is this sexual? Is it flirtatious? Why do I hunger for it so much? Why do I feel I need it so much? Well, there's somebody who leaves some comments on my videos now and again. Hello Intizam. And he left a comment recently about something he heard in a Hollywood movie about how happiness is only real if it's shared. And this seemed to give him some give him something to consider, something to think about. Here we've got the Yogin, very much involved in his own discipline, living in open spaces, minimizing his interaction with people. And in this verse, we've got the Yogin eschewing company, or at least large and confusing company. I suppose there's still a possibility for contact with individuals and friendships, but we get the impression the Yogin here is very much concerned with his own efforts, his own happiness. And I thought, yeah, this is an interesting maxim about happiness only being real if it can be shared. And it seemed to me that happiness itself is about sharing. And it's not just about giving something physical to somebody. It's about connecting. It's about connecting with people. And it's about connecting with them on as deep a level as possible. On a level that's not verbal. It's actually possible to have this connection with animals. But it's a connection which isn't based on conceptual understanding or conceptual agreements, ideological agreements. It's based on something else, something deeper. And I feel this with women, that it's possible to connect in this way, perhaps because women aren't so identified with the conceptual mind. It's a very beautiful thing. My wife's a little bit wary about it though. I don't think she likes me connecting with other women in this way. But as I said, I don't believe it's a sexual thing. I don't feel the least bit sexually aroused by it. I don't feel it actually leads to sexual interaction. It's possible it could, it's possible there's a danger there. So you have to be careful with that. But it's not the motivation. It might be that because it feels deep and personal, there's an inclination to misinterpret it as sexual. But I should also say I can feel this connection with men as well. Male friendship is a very strong thing. And this can also bypass the conceptual mind. It happens when you have a good communication. And this gets me to the point here. True happiness is the sharing of very deep communication. We tend to communicate on a very superficial level. But that's only because we've got very superficial ideas about ourselves. The Yogin has no such ideas. So the Yogin is looking for this very powerful, deep communication beyond superficial ideas of self. We are, in essence, cosmic beings. Whoa, what does that mean? We're actually, each of us, the center of the universe. Everything comes into creation at this point here. In a sense, We are therefore cosmic beings, and our heart is the heart of all creation. I suspect most of us have some kind of intuition about this, but we don't know how to get there, we don't know how to approach it, we don't know how to express it. And so the ego flaps around, prances around ridiculously, trying to attract attention to itself, and gets very confused in the process. But what we've got here in texts like the Lankavatara Sutra is an opportunity. It's a pointer to the heart of our reality and the reality of the whole, of all of existence. We cannot communicate in a conceptual level from here, but we can still communicate. There has to be the intention, and there has to be the capacity to receive this communication. And if you think your relationship with your pet, with your cat, your dog, or whatever is important, if you think your relationship with your lover is important, these connections are beautiful, then what about the connection which comes from this deepest communication? The communication of one cosmic being with another. This is right livelihood. It's a glorious communication, but communication isn't quite the right word for it. In this communication, there's revelation. You're being touched deeper than your mind. You're being touched in the innermost depths of your heart. This is true sharing, true happiness.